Hey everybody, my name is Jackie and I'm the owner of JL Fitness and Lifestyle, and today we're going to go over the squat, mistakes that happen in the squat, some cueing that you can use in a squat, and things that are just going to overall improve your form so that you're reducing the risk of injury and you can go ahead and make your squat as strong as possible. So I'm basically going to go from the feet up, and we're going to work our way through the different components of the squat and what to do and what not to do. So we're going to start with the feet. The feet are really the foundation of the squat and are going to determine how stable you are in your squat position. The ways that you're going to have your stance are all going to impact how strong your squat is going to be and whether or not you might be more prone to injury. So the first mistake that I see a lot of people make when they are squatting is their footwear. And it's not something that most people really consider when it comes down to certain exercises, but the footwear can really make or break how strong a squat is going to be and how stable you're going to be. So I firstly recommend, for the most part, nobody should be wearing running shoes when they're doing a squat. Running shoes are meant for running. They're meant to give your foot more cushion, but they're not really great for stability. They're very uneven, and it doesn't allow you to have a great stable footing in your squat. So what I do recommend for most people is barefoot, socks, or just like a general flat foot shoe like Converse or something like that. Even Converse can be a little bit of a gray area just because they don't allow for they squish your foot together, so it can be kind of uncomfortable. But if you can, go in your sock feet or get yourself a good like squat shoe. So that will make a huge difference in how your squat is going to perform and how stable you are in order to develop your squat even better. So one thing that I do see a lot with people is trying to figure out what the squat position is going to be like. And this really comes down to you and you as an individual, how your body is structured and different variations like that. I think there are too many like general rules that may or may not apply to some people. I'm a shorter stature person and my squat position is going to look a little bit different than somebody who might be a taller stature person. It all comes down to the position of your hips, the size of your femurs, and different things like that. So what I do recommend is having kind of like a starting position. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to focus on the different points of our feet. So if you were to look at your foot, what we want to do is when you're in a squat, I want you to think of 3 different points in your foot. The top one being here on your heel, and then one in your big toe and one in your little toe. And whatever position you end up in, we want to make sure that those 3 points stay on the ground. We don't want our squat to be coming back. We don't want to be coming forward. We want our feet to stay on the ground. And this is why we want to be able to feel the ground, and squat shoes might not be the thing that you're looking for when it comes to squatting. The next point I want to kind of relay is the position of your foot. So whether you are going to have like a more straightforward position, whether your foot is going to be like at a 45-degree angle or even wider, that's going to depend on comfort for you. And again, this comes down to the size of your femur and the position of your hips. So again, something you might have to work maybe with a trainer with or play around with on your own to see what's most comfortable for you. So I do feel like most people, for the most part, feel the most comfortable at about a 45-degree angle. So somewhere in between. And then the distance of your feet is also going to matter. And again, that comes down to the length of your femurs and the position of your hips. So somebody with wider femurs might be more comfortable having a more of a wider stance rather than being at like hip distance apart. So for most people, the stance is going to start somewhere from hip distance to just a little bit wider. And then anything wider than that, we're going into like a sumo squat, which is a different kind of variation. So again, these 2 things are things you might have to play around with and something you can develop with a trainer or in your own time. But those are 2 things that you have to consider are going to be very individual to you and how your body is made up and the structure of like your bone structure. So again, I feel like most people are comfortable with a 45-degree angle, maybe a little bit of a slightly wider than hip distance apart. Then that way you can get down into a bit more depth. But again, this varies from person to person. So it's something you have to play around with. A couple of misconceptions that have circulated the fitness industry, and I do think there's a lot of people who still believe them, is the first one being the squat should never, your knee should never come over your toes. And this is not true because, again, it depends on the person. It depends on the length of your femurs. If you have long femurs, you can bet your bottom dollar that your knees are going to be coming out over your toes. For someone like myself, who's a shorter stature person, I don't usually have that issue. And it's not an issue, but that doesn't usually happen for someone like my size. The other thing being that your squat should always be ass to grass. So what I mean by ass to grass is it's just a terminology that we use in the fitness industry, meaning that your squat is like super low. So like butt coming down to the floor. Not everyone can do this, and I'm going to say most people can't. It is just fine to do a squat that's going to come to about a 90-degree angle, coming down like this and coming back up. That's going to be, it's also going to be an effective movement. And I would say that for the general rule, the general population, the most optimal kind of squat that you're going to be able to see is having that 45-degree angle. You can be a little bit above, that's fine, but in a more optimal sense, we would want to see at least 45 degrees. And then if you can work in variations of ass to grass, that would be helpful in just developing that muscle. But when it comes to maybe lifting heavier or doing anything like that, a 90-degree angle is just fine. The other thing that I see a lot is the emphasis at the top of the movement. So you're squatting, and a lot of women especially like to do that little extra squeeze at the top, right? We don't want that. So it's not necessary. It doesn't provide any kind of additional benefit. What I do want you to do is I want you to stay strong, come down, and just stand up. As you're coming up, you can use your glutes to help with that upwards motion, and that is going to work your glutes. This additional movement is not going to be any kind of beneficial, and especially if you're under a lot of load, you're more likely to strain your back, and we don't want to do that. Throughout the entire squat movement, I think the other thing that is kind of overlooked is our posture. So although it's more of a lower body exercise, we do want to make sure that our posture is nice and strong, that our shoulders are back and down, our chest is up, our core is nice and strong. You're bracing your core just like someone is about to punch you in the stomach, and you have that like kind of brace. And that's what I want you to be able to feel before you even start your squat. So bracing that core, chest is out, shoulders are back, and we're maintaining that posture as we're coming down and as we're coming up. Again, if you can do this movement like ass to grass with your feet planted on the floor and nothing coming up or not falling back, that's totally fine, but we want to keep that chest up and then coming up nice and strong. If anything, going down to a 90-degree angle and then coming up. If you're finding that you're not able to go down into a squat without your feet, without falling forward, that might mean that you have some ankle mobility things that you need to work through. So there's other exercises that we can do to help with that flexibility, help with that mobility so that you can do a squat without needing any kind of assistance. But in the meantime, what you can do is you can find something that's going to elevate your heels just slightly. So what this is going to do is it's going to help with that ankle mobility so that you can keep your feet flat on the floor. So you're just going to lift your heels just slightly so that way it gives your ankle a little bit of a lesser range of motion, and that way you can perform a squat nice and comfortably, feel a lot more stable and a lot more confident in your squat without having to worry about whether you're going to fall forward or fall backward. So again, like that's just something that you can kind of work through. The other thing that you might see in a squat is when you're coming down, you might see your knees buckle inwards. So always as we are squatting, we want our knees to go out. We don't want to see this little knee cave. So what happens is when we have some kind of load, which is usually our body weight or something like a barbell or dumbbells or whatever it is, when we're coming up, you might be a bit more quad dominant and not have enough glute engagement on the outside here, like your hip abductors. So what you want to do is we can use some bands to help to strengthen that and really have that like mind muscle connection to have those kind of mechanics where your knees are pointed outwards. So that's, again, another thing that can be worked on the side in order to develop your squat and help it to get stronger, help it to get more efficient, and to develop those muscles a little bit better. So I think that's it for now. I know I went into a lot of detail there, a lot of little different bits of information, but I hope it was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions whatsoever. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.